Hi, I'm Desiree Harper from Buffalo, New York. Last Christmas Eve 8:00 p.m. on the dot, December 24th. The night my entire family will never forget. Snow was coming down hard outside my parents' old house in Amherst. Inside the tree was lit up presents stacked high, the smell of cinnamon and pine everywhere. My daughter Riley, 7, and my son Noah, 5, still believed in magic, still believed their grandparents hung the moon. Everyone was already there. My niece Brooklyn was ripping open the biggest gifts, laughing like it was her personal holiday. Riley ran straight to the tree, eyes huge. "Grandma, where are ours?" My mother locked eyes with me and said flat and cold, "Your kids aren't important enough for Christmas gifts this year." My sister Courtney leaned back with that little smirk and added, "Seriously, why waste money on fatherless kids anyway?" In 2 seconds flat, Noah's lips started trembling. Riley's eyes filled with tears that spilled over instantly. The whole room went dead silent, like someone hit mute on the world. I stood up, slowly reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and dialed one single number on speaker. The second the call connected, I said 4 words that made every adult in that room freeze solid. 4 words. That's all it took. If your own family has ever humiliated your children right in front of you on a holiday type, I've been there in the comments. I read every single one. And trust me, what happened after those 4 words? It destroyed everything they thought they knew about me. Stay till the end. You won't believe how far I went. The fake warmth that night had actually been building for weeks. Ever since one phone call I'll never forget. I was driving home from Riley's school in my beat-up SUV, windshield wipers fighting the heavy snow, when my phone rang. Mom's name flashed on the screen. Her voice came out syrupy sweet, the kind she only uses when she's about to drop something ugly. "Desiree, honey, we need to talk about Christmas this year." I gripped the wheel tighter. "Okay. We've decided to keep things simpler. We're only buying gifts for the grandchildren who come from stable 2-parent homes. To avoid gossip in the neighborhood." I almost swerved off the road. Stable 2-parent homes? Mom, I'm raising them alone because their father died. You know that. She sighed like I was the unreasonable one. Exactly. The kids already have that big trust fund from him. Ronald and I are on fixed income. We can't keep up appearances for everybody. That trust is locked until they're 18, I snapped. It's for college medical emergencies, nothing else. You're seriously using my dead husband's money as an excuse to exclude his own children. She laughed short and sharp. If you put it that way, then maybe you shouldn't come at all. Save everyone the awkwardness. The line went dead. That same evening, Courtney posted in the family group chat photos of beautifully wrapped presents lined up on her dining table, little gold name tags dangling from red ribbons. Brooklyn's name appeared on at least 8 boxes. My aunt's grandkids had a few each. Riley and Noah, not a single tag. She added a caption, "Can't wait for the best Christmas ever." I stared at the screen until it blurred. I typed and deleted 10 different replies. In the end, I said nothing. Later, when I tucked the kids in, Riley held up a handmade card she'd spent 3 afternoons on, glitter glue, cotton ball beard, the works. "Mommy, can we still go to Grandma's? I want to give her this. She said last year she loved my cards." Noah piped up from his bed. I drew Grandpa a reindeer. My heart cracked right there. I kissed their foreheads and whispered, "Of course we'll go, babies." I told myself it would just be no presents. A little sting, nothing more. They could still see their cousins eat cookies, feel the magic for one more year. I was wrong. So wrong. The next days dragged. Courtney kept posting countdowns. Mom sent texts about what pies she was baking, how many seats she was setting at the table, never once asking if we were still coming. The silence felt deliberate. I almost canceled 5 times. But every night Riley would hug that card to her chest and ask, "We're still going, right, Mommy?" so I packed the car with the gifts I'd bought for everyone else wrapped in the same paper Courtney used just to prove I wasn't bitter. I told myself I was doing it for the kids. Looking back, that decision was the match that lit the fuse. Because what happened when we walked through that door on Christmas Eve wasn't just no presents. It was a public execution of my children's worth delivered with smiles and Christmas carols playing in the background. And I was about to show them exactly how much power their unimportant mother really had. So there I was on Christmas Eve driving my old SUV through a full-on blizzard toward the 5-bedroom colonial my parents had lived in since before I was born. The house sat on a quiet cul-de-sac in Amherst, the kind of street where every lawn used to be perfect. Now the paint was peeling in long gray strips, the gutters sagged, and the roof had dark patches where shingles had blown off years ago. The pipes froze every winter and the furnace rattled like it was about to give up. Yet the Christmas tree glowing through the front window was taller than any I'd ever seen them put up, almost touching the 12-foot ceiling covered in so many lights it looked desperate to hide the decay. I parked in the driveway behind Courtney's new leased Lexus. Snow was already piling on the windshield. Riley clutched her handmade card. Noah pressed his face to the glass, whispering, "Santa came here too, Mommy." We stepped inside, and the heat hit us first, then the smell of pine needles and cinnamon candles trying too hard. Mom opened the door just wide enough to let us in, gave Riley a 2-second hug, then stepped back, like she'd completed a chore. Dad barely looked up from the bar cart, gave Noah one stiff pat on the shoulder, and went straight back to pouring bourbon. Tiffany, who had been crashing in their basement for 8 months after her 3rd layoff, bounced off the couch with a huge fake smile. "Oh my gosh, look how big you guys got." The sweetness in her voice could have stripped paint. Brooklyn was already parked cross-legged in front of the tree, surrounded by boxes wrapped in metallic paper. She tore into one and squealed when the new iPad slid out. Another box revealed white AirPods Max. She didn't even glance at my kids. Riley tugged my hand and skipped over. "Grandma, do we open ours now?" Mom let out a long, theatrical sigh, glanced around the room like she was checking for approval, then said, "Sweetie, Grandpa and I are getting older. Our pension only stretches so far. We decided to focus on the grandchildren who really need it this year." Courtney didn't miss a beat. She swirled her wine and added smooth as poison. "Yeah, I mean kids without both parents around. Nobody can predict how they'll turn out. Better to invest where it's safe." Brian stared at the carpet knuckles white around his glass, saying nothing. Noah's mouth fell open. A second later, he didn't understand the words, but he felt them. His little chest hitched, and then the crying started, loud, messy, unstoppable. Riley didn't cry right away. She just stood there staring at the mountain of presents that didn't belong to her, lips trembling so hard I thought they'd split. One tear rolled down her cheek, then another, but she didn't make a sound. I felt every pair of adult eyes on me, waiting to see if I'd make a scene, if I'd dare ruin their perfect evening. The Christmas music kept playing. Someone's phone started buzzing with Instagram notifications. The fire crackled like it was laughing. I knelt down, pulled both kids into my arms, and felt their small bodies shake against me. My own heartbeat was so loud I was sure the whole room could hear it. That was the exact moment I stopped caring about keeping the peace, because in that living room, surrounded by blinking lights and the smell of gingerbread, my children had just been told out loud that they didn't matter. And I decided right then that some lines once crossed can never be uncrossed. I wrapped both kids tight in my arms, feeling like the whole planet had stopped spinning. Then I stood up and pulled my phone out right in front of everyone. The room was still frozen. I scrolled to the one contact I knew would change everything, hit call, and switched it to speaker. A calm, professional voice answered immediately. "Desiree, I'm listening." I spoke slowly, making sure every word landed. "Effective January 1st, permanently stop the $14,000 monthly transfers to Diane and Ronald Mitchell and the $9,000 transfers to Courtney Mitchell. Send confirmation letters within 48 hours. Mom's face drained of color so fast I thought she might faint. What transfers? I have no idea what you're talking about. I turned the phone around, opened the banking app, and held the screen up for the entire room to see. Page after page of transaction history scrolled by 6 solid years of outgoing payments, every single one labeled clearly, all coming straight from the trust fund my late husband had set up for the kids with me as the only trustee. Courtney shot up from the couch. You're kidding, right? We thought that was senior assistance from the state. I kept my voice ice cold. No. That was me covering your mortgage, your property taxes, your medical bills when Dad's heart acted up. That was me paying Brooklyn's private school tuition at St. Joseph's so she could stay with her friends. Every month, like clockwork. And now it's over. Brian finally spoke, his voice shaking. Desiree, please don't do this. I looked at each of them. Mom clutching the arm of her chair, Dad staring into his bourbon like it held answers. Courtney's mouth opening and closing without sound, Tiffany suddenly very interested in her nails. I met their eyes, one by one. You just made my children cry on Christmas Eve. You told them to their faces that they don't matter. I'm simply returning the favor. The silence stretched so long the Christmas playlist looped back to the same song. Brooklyn had stopped playing with her new headphones. Even she looked scared. Mom found her voice first, whisper thin. How much have you been sending us exactly? I swiped to the summary page. Over $1 million total. 1,123,000 to be exact. All discretionary gifts from the trust. The law says I can stop them anytime. And tonight, I choose to stop. Dad slammed his glass down so hard the ice rattled. You can't just cut us off? We're family. Courtney jumped in, eyes wild. Do you know what this means? Brooklyn School is paid through May. What am I supposed to tell them? I felt Riley squeeze my hand tighter. Noah had buried his face in my sweater, but he was listening to every word. I looked at Courtney. Tell them the same thing you just told my kids, that some children are more deserving than others. Tiffany tried a nervous laugh. Come on, guys, it's Christmas. Let's not... I cut her off without looking away from my parents. You've been living in this house because of me. The roof repairs after the ice storm 3 years ago. Me. The new furnace last winter. Me. All of it. Mom's hands started shaking. We'll lose everything. I nodded once. Yes, you will. Brian stood up slowly like he was afraid to move too fast. Desiree, think about the kids. All the kids. I glanced down at Riley and Noah, then back at him. That's exactly what I'm doing. Courtney took a step toward me, voice cracking. You planned this. You came here tonight knowing you'd pull the rug out. I shook my head. No. I came hoping you'd prove me wrong. You didn't. The fire popped loudly in the hearth. Outside, the wind howled against the windows, rattling the old panes. Dad tried one last time, softer. We're sorry. Okay. We didn't mean it like that. But the damage was done. The words were already out there, hanging in the air like smoke. I pocketed my phone. The letters will arrive tomorrow. Merry Christmas. We pulled out of my parents' driveway just before midnight, snow blanketing the windshield so thick the wipers could barely keep up, both kids finally asleep from sheer exhaustion and tears. The drive home felt endless. I kept one hand on the wheel and the other on Noah's tiny back through the car seat, feeling his little hiccups slow into steady breathing. Riley's handmade card lay crumpled in her lap, glitter smudging the seat. When we finally made it back to our quiet ranch house on the other side of Amherst, I carried them inside one by one, tucked them into their beds, and kissed their damp cheeks. Only then did I let myself breathe. I poured a glass of water I didn't drink, opened my laptop on the kitchen island, and started a Zoom call with Klein and the Trust's senior portfolio manager. It was late, but they both picked up on the first ring. I shared my screen without saying hello. The document that filled it was the reverse mortgage agreement my parents had signed 4 years earlier, right after Dad's second heart scare. The bank had threatened foreclosure because they were 6 months behind. I had co-signed as guarantor for a new 920 $920 reverse line of credit so they could stay in the house. The contract was clear. Annual renewal required my signature. Without it, the full balance became due immediately. I clicked to the signature page. My name sat alone in the guarantor box. No renewal this year, I said. Let the bank proceed. Klein didn't even blink. Understood. We'll notify them first thing in the morning. 90-day clock starts January 1st. Then I opened a second file, the venture capital term sheet for the Lackawanna waterfront condo project everyone in Buffalo had been talking about for 18 months. Courtney's firm was the junior subcontractor handling interior finishes. My family office had committed $1.2 million in preferred equity, the only outside money keeping the whole thing afloat. I highlighted my digital signature at the bottom. Pull it. Effective immediately. Full redemption, no penalties. The portfolio manager typed for a few seconds. Wire will hit their account minus our investment by market open. They'll be in default by lunch. I closed both files. Klein's voice was gentle. Are you sure? I looked down the hallway toward the kids' rooms. Riley had kicked off her blanket. Noah was curled into a ball, clutching his stuffed reindeer. They chose to stand on the side that hurt my children, I said. I'm choosing my children. The call ended. I sat in the dark kitchen a long time listening to the furnace hum and the snow tap the windows. I thought about the day I signed those papers 4 years ago. Mom crying in the hospital parking lot, Dad too proud to ask for help. I remembered wiring the first check the same week, telling myself it was temporary, that family helps family. I thought about every birthday card I'd sent with an extra check tucked inside every time Courtney bragged about her new purse or Brooklyn's elite summer camp, and I just smiled. I thought about the way Mom's voice had gone flat tonight when she said my kids weren't important enough. My phone buzzed on the counter. A text from an unknown number. Please call us. We can explain. I deleted it. Another buzz. Dad this time. This will kill your mother. I turned the phone face down. A third. Courtney. You're destroying Brooklyn's future over one bad night. I powered it off completely. I walked to the kids' rooms, stood in each doorway, watched their chests rise and fall. Riley had fallen asleep with tears still drying on her cheeks. Noah's reindeer was squeezed so tight its eye had popped half out. I fixed the blanket over Riley's shoulders, kissed her forehead again. She stirred, whispered without opening her eyes. Are we still loved, Mommy? I swallowed the lump in my throat. More than anything in the world, baby. Back in the kitchen, I poured that untouched glass down the sink, opened the fridge, and pulled out the small chocolate cake I'd hidden for tomorrow. I ate it standing up, letting the sweetness cut through the bitterness. Outside, the snow kept falling, erasing tire tracks, covering the world in clean white. Inside, I felt something shift and settle. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying anyone else's weight. And I never would again. Christmas morning, I woke up to 312 text messages and 68 missed calls lighting up my phone like a fireworks display gone wrong. The first one was a 3-minute voice note from Mom, her words choking on sobs. You've killed me, Desiree. We're going to lose the house. Everything we've built gone because of one fight. How can you sleep knowing your own mother's heart is breaking? I didn't listen to the end. I deleted it and moved to the next. Dad had sent a photo of his pill bottle, the label blurry, but the prescription for nitroglycerin clear enough. The caption read, "You want your father dead too." Then came the barrage from Courtney. 27 messages in a row, each longer than the last. The first was begging. Please think about what this does to Brooklyn. She's only 8. She doesn't deserve this. By message 10, it turned ugly. You're a monster. I'm calling the police. This is elder abuse fraud, whatever they call it, when you screw over your own family. Message 15. If I end up in the hospital, it's on you. I can't take this stress. I forwarded the whole thread to Klein with a single-line document, everything. My response was simple. I attached a scan of the bank's official notice, the one that had arrived in their email at 6:03 a.m. The subject line read, "Final Notice, Reverse Mortgage Default. 90 days until foreclosure proceedings begin effective January 1st. I added no comment. Let the paper speak. The kids woke up before the phone did anything else. Riley padded into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes, Noah trailing behind with his reindeer still tucked under one arm. They looked at me like they were waiting for the other shoe to drop, like last night had been a dream they weren't sure was over. I set the phone face down and pulled out the stockings I'd filled in secret. Chocolate coins, new coloring books, a small Lego set for Noah. We sat on the living room floor and opened them slowly, their laughter starting tentative, then building until the house felt warm again. By noon, the messages had slowed to a trickle. I turned the ringer off completely and took them to the park down the street, where the snow was fresh and untouched. We built a lopsided snowman with carrot nose and stick arms. Riley named it Frosty the Brave. That afternoon, while the kids napped, my phone buzzed once more. This time, it was an email from the school district. Courtney's firm had been let go from the Lackawanna project. She'd been project manager for the Interior Division. Without funding, the whole subcontract evaporated. Termination effective immediately. I pictured her at her desk, the email popping up during what should have been holiday lunch. The way her face would crumple, the way she'd scramble for excuses to her boss. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, another voice note. Her voice was horse mascara probably running. They fired me. Because of you. Brooklyn's Christmas is ruined, and now her whole year. You happy now? I didn't reply. That evening, as I was heating leftover roast for dinner, another notification hit. A mutual friend from the neighborhood texted Heard about Courtney and Brian. Rough. He packed up and left around 7. Took his golf clubs and the truck. Didn't say where. I set the oven mitt down and sat at the table. Brian had been fraying at the edges for months. I'd seen it at family barbecues, the way he'd drink too much and go quiet when Courtney started bragging about her latest renovation or Brooklyn's horseback riding lessons. The credit card debt had been mounting. $47,000 by last count, all on cards, with 24% interest. He'd mentioned it once offhand during Thanksgiving cleanup. Can't keep up with the Joneses forever. Now the Joneses were bankrupt, and he was gone. Courtney called 3 times in the next hour. I let it go to voicemail. The 4th time I answered just to hear her break. Desiree. Her voice was small, stripped of the venom. He left. Packed a bag and drove off. Said he couldn't take the fighting anymore. The money stress. Brooklyn's asking where Daddy went. What do I tell her? I closed my eyes, picturing my niece's face, the same age as Riley, confused and scared in a suddenly empty house. Tell her the truth, I said quietly. That sometimes people leave when things get too hard. She started crying, then real ugly sobs that turned into gasps. This is all falling apart. Mom's talking about selling jewelry, Dad won't leave his room. And Tiffany? They kicked her out this morning. Said there's no room for freeloaders when they're about to be homeless. Tiffany. The basement dweller with her collection of half-finished online courses and rotating boyfriends. She'd been there since July, contributing exactly 1 load of laundry a week and endless commentary on everyone else's lives. I remembered the last time I'd seen her smirking from the couch while my kids stood empty-handed. Now she was back with ex number 3, probably on a lumpy couch in Cheektowaga, 30 minutes east. Courtney kept talking, words tumbling out. We're done, Des. The bank letter came certified. 90 days. That's it. All those years in that house. I let her talk until her voice gave out. When she finally stopped, I said, You made a choice last night. Now live with it. I hung up and blocked the number. The kids woke up then, drawn by the smell of dinner. We ate at the table, just the 3 of us, candles flickering from the Advent wreath. Noah smeared gravy on his reindeer. Riley drew hearts around our plates. Outside, the snow had stopped. The world was quiet. Inside, I felt the weight lift piece by piece. 3 months later, a handwritten letter in blue ballpoint ink paper, creased and blotched with tear stains, arrived at my old address and was forwarded to me. Mom's handwriting shook so badly I could barely read it at first. She wrote that the house sold for $420,000 after realtor fees far below what they owed. After paying off the reverse mortgage, they walked away with $12,000 in a cashier's check. $12,000 to start over at 67 and 64. They'd found a one-bedroom apartment on Buffalo's east side, the kind of place where the hallway smells like old grease and the walls are cracked from foundation shifts. 4 adults crammed inside Mom and Dad on a pull-out sofa in the living room, Courtney and Brooklyn sharing the single bedroom. The bathroom door didn't close all the way. The heat only worked half the time. Courtney had taken the night cashier job at the Walmart on Walden Avenue, the one with the flickering lights and the parking lot full of potholes. She wore the blue vest now, scanning groceries until 2 in the morning, then driving home in the dark. Brooklyn had been pulled from St. Joseph's and enrolled in the local public school. The kids there wasted no time. They'd heard the rumors your mom used to act rich, now she works at Walmart. Brooklyn came home crying almost every day. Mom's letter went on for 4 pages front and back. She listed everything they'd lost: the china cabinet from her own mother, Dad's old record collection, the porch swing where they'd sat every summer evening. She wrote about the shame of neighbors watching the moving truck, about Dad refusing to leave the apartment some days. Near the end, the ink grew darker, like she was pressing harder. We were wrong. We know that now. We let pride and stupid comparisons blind us. We hurt Riley and Noah in a way no grandparent ever should. Please, Desiree, just one visit. Let us see them one last time. Let us say sorry to their faces. We'll never ask again. I read it twice on the back porch while the kids played in the yard. Then I scanned it and emailed it to Klein with the subject line, "Retain for file." No response required. I never wrote back. Almost a year later, we were living in a waterfront house in Sarasota, Florida, where Christmas belonged only to the 3 of us. The house sat right on the bay, floor-to-ceiling windows facing west, so every sunset painted the walls pink and gold. A real Fraser fir stood in the great room, its pine scent drifting through the open doors to the lanai. Riley, now 8, and Noah, almost 7, had decorated it themselves. Stringing lights, hanging shells we'd collected from Siesta Key, and arguing over who got to place the star, until they finally did it together, standing on the same stool, giggling the whole time. Presents spilled across the hardwood like a colorful ocean. Bikes with ribbons, art sets, a telescope for stargazing, books stacked higher than Noah's head. We wore matching plaid pajamas, took 100 photos, and ate cinnamon rolls straight from the pan while the Gulf sparkled outside. That night, after Noah had fallen asleep, clutching his new stuffed dolphin, and Riley was brushing her teeth, she looked at me in the mirror and asked the only question she ever asked about the past anymore. "Mom or Grandma and Grandpa coming this year?" I knelt down, wiped toothpaste from her chin, and pulled her into a hug. "No, baby. It's just us this Christmas." "And every Christmas?" She thought about that for a second, then nodded. "That's okay. I like it being just us." She kissed my cheek and skipped to bed. I stood in the hallway a long time, listening to the quiet hum of the house, the soft crash of waves against the seawall, the occasional laugh from Noah in his sleep. Their smiles were different now, wide open, no shadows behind the eyes, no flinch when the phone rang, no nervous glances when someone mentioned family. They ran barefoot across the sand-collected shark teeth by the handful, learned to paddleboard before most kids learned to ride bikes. Riley made the swim team. Noah started surf camp and came home every day sunburned and grinning. I watched them grow taller, louder, freer, and I knew we had made it. We had traded blizzards for sunsets, a crumbling colonial, for a house filled with light silence, for laughter that echoed off the water. Some nights I walked the beach alone after they were asleep. The moon lit a silver path across the gulf, and the sand was still warm under my feet. I thought about the letter, the apartment, the blue vest, the cracked walls. I felt no anger anymore, no guilt. Just the clean, sharp relief of a wound finally healed. Blood doesn't always mean family. Sometimes it just means shared DNA and old obligations. Real family is the people who choose you every single day, who protect your heart, even when it costs them everything. I chose my children that Christmas Eve, and they have chosen me back every day since. If you're watching this and you're still carrying people who hurt your kids just because they share your last name, know this: you are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to build a new table with only the people who treat your children like the miracles they are. I did. And I have never slept better, laughed louder, or loved harder in my entire life, because the best gift I ever gave my kids wasn't under any tree. It was the peace of knowing they will never again have to wonder if they are important enough. They are my whole world, and our world is beautiful.